Well, we've been on our series Beyond the Elementary, about going deeper with things of God. Jesus never called anybody to just be a Christian, but he did call us to be disciples. Disciple means to be a disciplined follower of Christ, someone who is serious about really changing their lives. We've been on step number 7, which is God chapter. I think we'll finish up tonight on God. We've been talking about what are some of the things that we need to know about God. We certainly don't know a whole lot, and we're never going to know everything, but there's certain things that he does want us to know, and one of the things is about how he uses storms in our life. God orders storms. Storms come in the form of trials, tests, or temptations. And so tonight we want to look at storms number 2, part 2. We dove into it last week, and this week we're going to build on it more. And why God orders storms, trials and tests. What is the purpose? What is the nature? What is the real reason? What's really going on when God allows us to go through things in our life? So the question we had last week, storms, are they good or bad? We said in the natural realm, God will send a natural storm. If you're in a boat and you're getting up to a storm, and one of the things you can do when you get up to a storm is you can just turn around and run and go back home. It's not a good day to go out. The other thing you can do when you get up to a storm is figure out a way to go around it. Another thing you can do is just sit idly still and wait for the storm to pass. And then some people that are a little wild and crazy just say throttle up and let's just do this thing and push right on through the storms. But either way, God orders storms in the natural realm. It's part of Mother Nature. There's a reason for it. It brings balance to the system and different things. But in the same way, in Christian life, what's wrong with the thing here? But it's the same when we're Christians. God will order spiritual storms into our life. Those storms, again, come in the form of trials, tests, or temptations, or crises, or just different events. And when we see these things, our tendency sometimes is to not understand the nature of why God sends these different things, and we turn around and run from the very thing that God ordered into our life. And sometimes we try to figure out a way to go around it, to manipulate the situation, and avoid what God's trying to do. Sometimes we just sit and do nothing. We just don't do anything with that storm. Then sometimes also too we recognize they're from God and we just choose to push them through the storms. And it's taken me a long time to learn to understand and to recognize spiritual storms in my life, but I have learned a lot about them. One of the things I realize is that God does order storms, trials and tests, and that I also have a choice. Most of the times in my life I've ran from them. Whenever God was trying to do something in my life, I just ran from it. I tried to go around God or hide from God. How many know you can't hide from God? Not a real safe place when you're trying to hide from God. It's kind of hard to get away from Him. There's been times where I've just sit there and said, poor little old me, God, you're just being mean and life's cruel, and blame it on the devil, and that gets us nowhere. And then there's some times where I just say, well, I don't understand what you're doing, Lord. I don't know what's really going on. But either way, I've been here and done that. And I know running, going and drinking over it and drugging over it is not an option anymore. I know trying to manipulate's not. So sitting still does nothing. So Lord, I've learned that, Lord, let's just go through this storm. And I trust and believe there's a reason for it and a purpose for it. And that when I get to the other side, it's going to be better. So tonight we want to look at exactly why God orders these storms, and we want to take a look at what's really going on. Turn with me to our first scripture tonight. It's 1 Peter 4:12. Peter gives us a little insight into the nature and purpose of trials. He says, beloved, when he says beloved, he's talking to his people that he's preaching to. These are Christian people. He's saying, you Christians, beloved disciples of mine, do not be surprised. The Amplified uses the word, do not be amazed. Do not be bewildered. I like to throw in there, do not be alarmed, do not be perplexed. Don't get confused when at the fiery ordeals that have come upon you, as though some strange thing were coming upon you for your testing. The Amplified says, beloved, do not be amazed or surprised or bewildered at the fiery ordeal that is taking place to test the quality of your faith as something strange or unusual or alien to your position that's coming upon you. So the first thing we need to know is that when God orders a storm in our life, the next thing we know, for whatever reason, sometimes we don't even have time to evaluate whether to run or go around, or sometimes we just find ourselves in the middle of this situation. Our first reaction sometimes, like I said, is to say, poor little old me, and life's just cruel, and God's just being mean, and then we get angry and we blame God. Sometimes we blame things on the devil, and it's not even really the devil. Flip Wilson used to say, the devil made me do it. Well, we're real quick to do that. But one of the things that we need to realize is that there's no strange coincidences for those that are Christians. Whenever we find ourselves in a fire ordeal, how many of you had some fire ordeals already this week just because we've been preaching on it? It seems like you go through one fire and then you put that one out, you go through another fire, and it's like, sometimes you just get overwhelmed, and that's what he's saying, when you find yourself in the middle of a fire ordeal, and it says, we all know what it means to be an ordeal. That means to be in a situation, but a fire ordeal is a heated one. It's not just some little issue that's coming up. We're talking about a fire ordeal. That means you just had a blowout with your wife or your husband. You just got fired at work, or you just lost somebody, or we're talking about something that is a heated, heavy-duty situation. I don't know about you, but even as a Christian, it's no fun to be in those situations. But Peter says not only if these situations fire, but when they come, we need to realize that there's no strange coincidences. How many know nothing can happen to us as Christians unless God either orders it or He allows it? Sometimes we are going through fire ordeals because of our own stupidity. Are you with me? They're self-induced. We're self-imposed. We're in something because we've been disobeying, and here, we're in a situation, but that's because I just got drunk last night. I got a DUI. I got arrested, or I got into drugs or whatever. Now I'm in the rubber room. And so sometimes we're in situations not because God so much ordered or allowed it, but we put ourselves. So sometimes the first thing you need to look at is what's really going on. Is this something that I'm responsible for? Is this something that I put myself in? Now, if you can eliminate that one, then you might say the devil's picking in you or whatever. But either way, God orders things. So either what you're going through has been ordered by God, or it's been allowed by God, and the Lord is allowing the devil to work in your life to do something. There's a reason for it. So he says, don't be surprised, don't be bewildered, don't get all caught up in these different things. When you get into a storm, first thing you need to do is stop. You need to bring God into the center of this thing and say, what's really going on? One of the biggest questions that we all, as disciples, need to learn to always ask about everything is, what's really going on in my life? If everything is either allowed or ordered by God and I know it's not me, the first thing I need to do is stop and say, okay, what's really going on? Is this something that I've done to myself, or is this something that God has put me in? So if God has put me in something, then running away from it's not going to do any good. Trying to go around it's not doing any good. Sitting there is no good. The only solution is to say, Lord, I accept this. I embrace this as one of your trials and tests. I know you're trying to do something in my life. So Lord, I just put on the seatbelt and I go through it. Now, one of the little reasons he tells us right here is that he says, don't be surprised at the fire ordeal that's come upon you. But it's for your testing, to test the quality of your faith. So what's really going on in these trials is God is really trying to develop character in our life, testing the quality of it. He's trying for us to find out where we are in our spiritual journey and how much work we need to work on. So turn with me to 1 Peter 1. Peter here again is talking. And he tells us there's two things we need to know. The first one, he says, in verse 3 of 1 Peter chapter 1, he says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who according to his great mercy has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to obtaining an inheritance which is imperishable and undefiled and will not fade away, reserved in heaven for you, who are protected by the power of God through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time." He says, "In this you greatly rejoice, even though now, at the moment, for a little while, if necessary, you have been experiencing or distressed by various trials, storms, tests, or temptations, so that the proof of your faith, being more precious than gold, which is perishable, even though tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ." So Peter is telling his people about two different things. First, he says, what's going on in heaven in the permanent realm. How many know our real home is going to be in heaven? So he's telling the Christians, he said, first of all, what's really going on is you need to know something, is that you've been born again. You have an inheritance from God waiting in heaven. It's reserved for you. It's waiting for you. And it's protected, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going to be taken away from you. It's reserved in heaven for you. How many know God has a table in heaven that's got your name on the table and it says reserved for you? So he lets you know that's a done deal. You're going to heaven. So what's really going on is always know that one day we're going to be delivered out of this big mess. We're not going to be tempted. We're not going to be tested. We're not going to be going through trials. Finally, one day we're going to be delivered. We won't have all these compulsions and obsessions and angers and attitudes, all this different stuff. One day we're going to finally be delivered. We're going to go to heaven. We're going to have an inheritance, and it's reserved. It's waiting for us. And we're going to live forever and forever and forever. So there's two dimensions. One, he says, no, in the permanent realm, that your real home is going to be in heaven. But in the temporary realm, right now, he says you find yourself in a test. He says, in this situation, you greatly rejoice that you've got your real home in heaven, so always keep that in mind. One day it's all going to be over with. But he says, for right now, he says, but you're going through different trials, you're going through different tests, you're being distressed, you're in this fire ordeal, but you need to know that what's really going on is God is proof proving your faith. The word proof here is the word for testing. It means genuineness. It comes from the word means to be approved or to stamp something as being authentic. Peter tells them right now what's really going on is you're not ready to go to heaven yet. That's going to happen up there. But right now, there's a proving or a testing of your faith. You're in a fire right now. There's something that's going on in this fire. And he's trying to develop your faith. He's trying to prepare your character. How many know we've had character, but we've never had what we call proven character? Now, when they're trying to refine gold, they put gold into a fire and they heat it up, and the dross of the impurities of the other materials, the alloys, the impurities, all the stuff that's not good will come to the surface, and then they'll skim that off the top, and then they'll heat it again more dross will come to the top, and they scrape it off, and they keep heating it, and they keep heating it and heating it until there's no more other alloys, impurities, other mixtures. And when they finally got it, the way they know that they've got pure gold is that the person doing the refiner can look at it and see his reflection. And so once that gold has gone through the fire over and over and over again, then it comes out the other side and it's stamped. Let's take a bar of gold and it's stamped that this is pure gold. They put a stamp on it that says this is genuine, authentic, real deal, pure gold. There's no other mixtures, there's no other alloys. It's untainted, uncorrupted, unpolluted. And it's been determined, it's been through the fire over and over again to the point now where it's been proven and it's been determined that it's pure gold. And this is really what God is doing in our life. He puts us in all these different trials and tests throughout our life, not to be mean, not to be cruel, but He's trying to burn out the things in us that don't look like Jesus. He's trying to prepare us for when we get to heaven. Now, there's a whole other teaching on why character is going to be so important in heaven. You know, the only thing that's going to matter in heaven is not how much money you have or how, you know, what you did here on earth. The only thing that's really going to matter in heaven is going to be your character. Your character, you know, is your heart. It's the inside, it's the soul, it's the real you, it's the person you are. This person I have, that I am right now, is going to die. It's going to go back to dust. But my heart or my soul or my character is going to go on into heaven, and based on how well I develop my character, based on how well I allowed myself to cooperate with God in these tests and trial, is going to determine, you know, what my assignment is going to be in heaven. So these trials and these tests are there for us too, as God sends us to these. It's important that we leave ourselves in these trials and tests to allow God to burn out those things over and over and over again, to the point where when people look at us, they see Jesus. We have a reflection that looks just like the real deal. And so God is about developing proven character in our life. Now turn me to Matthew 4:1. We talked about this last week. Matthew 4:1, it says, Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. We said last week that for 30 years, Jesus basically worked in a carpenter shop just like everybody else. He went through different trials himself and tests, and you know, Hebrews says that he was tempted in all ways, just like we were, yet he never sinned. But he had to grow up in developing character, just like we did. We don't know much about what was going on, but he was developing character, and all of a sudden, the 30 years is up, and it's time for him to go into why he's been put here on earth. He gets baptized, he comes up out of the water, and a voice from heaven comes down. The Spirit descends on Jesus like a dove, and there's a voice that comes out of heaven and says, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." And immediately, it says the Spirit drove him into the wilderness. Or let's look at it this way, into a storm. For 30 days. To be tempted by the devil. The word, driven, it means to be impelled. It means intensity. It means to be pushed, to impel for a specific reason. Driven for a specific purpose. So Jesus was driven into the storm to be tempted by the devil. The word tempted is the word to pierce or to search into, to determine what is good or evil. It means to sift. So Jesus has been told that he's the Son of God, my Son in whom I'm well pleased. We know that the ultimate goal here is the cross. Jesus' destiny, the whole reason he came was to go to the cross. And so throughout this journey, before he gets to the cross, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen. And there's going to be many, many temptations, many tests, trials, just like we go through. People are going to accuse him of things. They're going to try to throw him off the cliff. He's going to be tempted, just like he's going to go through every single thing we do. And so it's going to be important that when not if these things come, but when they come, Jesus is going to have to be able to endure each one. He's going to have to see through it to the cross. And so he's out in the devil and he's out in the wilderness, and the reason he goes into the wilderness is for a 30-day test to determine what is good and what is evil in the Lord. Now, obviously we know that there's no evil in him, but to make it all fair, it's important that Jesus knows who he is. He's been told he's the Son of God, but he has to be tested, he has to be tried, he has to go through everything we do, or he couldn't be our high priest. And so we know that he basically comes out of these tests from the devil, and the devil tries and tries and tries, but he doesn't find anything but good in Jesus. Jesus constantly, he's hungry, he's being tested, he's thirsty, he's being tempted with his pride and all kinds of different things. But when it was done, it says the devil departed till a more opportune time, which tells you that the devil's always going to be back. Now the real test came in Gethsemane when Jesus had gone through all that, but he was right up getting ready to go to the cross. And all of a sudden, the reality of what he was having to face is upon him, and he says, "Lord, if there's possible, let this cup pass from me, but if not, then let thy will be done, not my will be done." And what would have happened if Jesus himself had gotten into these different tests, and all of a sudden they're trying to throw him off the cliff and accuse him of being the devil, and he says, "I'm tired of this. I don't need all this stuff. I'm gonna turn around and run." What if he had tried to go around it? What if he just sat still and did nothing? What if he went through all this and bailed out in Gethsemane and said, "No, this is too much. This is not what I bargained for. This is not in the fine print. This is not in my job description. I'm not into this. See you." Every one of us would have been in a mess, wouldn't we? Every one of us would be headed to hell. So it was important that Jesus had to find out what was in him. He needed to be tested. He needed to be sifted to go through everything we did so that he could be counted on, so the Father could count on him to do what he was called to do. Now it's the same way with us. You know, God has a mission and a plan and assignment for our lives. And before we met Christ, we've had all these character defects. Some good things, some bad things. And God wants to take us to a place, but how many know your gifts will take you places that your character won't keep you? We're only as strong spiritually as our weakest moment. And character is revealed, that where we're at in our quality is revealed in the heat of battle. So we have all these different things, and God is trying to sift through these things. He's trying to search into us to get rid of these different things, these character defects. Maybe it's lust, maybe it's anger, maybe it's a love for money. And so He puts us through a series of tests all of our life. Whereas we go through, He's getting rid of a few more, and then He gets rid of a few more. He gets rid of a few more. They're fire after fire after fire. And He's wanting to present us with proven character. Not just character, but character that is tested, tried, and proven. One of the things it tells leaders of a church is to not lay hands on anybody too quickly. People that think, well, that means, don't go praying for healing or deliverance on somebody because the demon might jump out of them and jump back on them. Well, there may be some truth to that, but what James is really talking about leaders is don't be too quick to ordain somebody. Don't make them a deacon, don't make them a pastor. Don't ordain them and put God's blessing on them, saying this is my beloved son in essence, because they may not have the character developed, its character, but it's not been proven and tested and tried over and over and over. So it's important that when you're getting ready to ordain somebody, that you watch them, you've observed them, you watch them go from test to test to test. You believe they've dealt with enough things, and you believe they're now ready. Jesus was ready. You can't lay hands on somebody and then all of a sudden 5 years down the road, they've never dealt with their lust problem. And now, not only do they lose their credibility and their reputation, but now a whole church may go down. So it's the same way with us, whether you're a pastor or anybody, we all have a destiny, a place God's taken us. And God has tested the quality in us. Turn me to Luke 22. In Luke 22, the story is from 24, really all of chapter 22, really. Jesus is getting ready to go to the cross. He's been raising, disciples, trying to get them to get ready. He's been talking about the cross and how difficult it's going to be for them. And all of a sudden, there's a fight that breaks out, a literal heated argument among the disciples about which one of them is going to be the greatest. Can you imagine? Here's a rooster crowing contest between a bunch of men letting their pride get in the way. Jesus is getting ready to go to the cross, the toughest time of his life, and all of a sudden all these character defects are coming out in these guys. He's been with them 3 years, and this is where they're at in their character development. Far from being ready for Jesus to leave them and to turn the whole message of the gospel. Jesus had already told Peter that you're the rock, and upon this, you're Peter the rock, and upon the confession that he had made about who Christ was, he said, I'm going to build my whole church. Jesus was counting on Peter to be the leader of building the whole future church. Jesus was getting ready to be gone. So here now they're having a big heated argument between themselves. Jesus explains to them that it's not about being the greatest, it's about being the servant, and that's the person that's going to be greatest in heaven. In verse 31, he says, Simon, Simon, it's like he watches this big fight, but he picks out Peter in particularly. He says, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has demanded permission to sift you like wheat. But I pray for you that your faith may not fail, and that you, when you have turned again or repented, strengthen your brothers. But he said to him, Lord, with you I am ready to go both to prison and to death. And he said to him, I say to you, Peter, the rooster will not crow today until you have denied me 3 times that you will know me. Listen to this. Jesus looks at Peter and tells Peter that the devil has been knocking on my door. He's been calling me on the phone. And he's asked me permission to sift you like wheat, to go through you and to pick on those things that are not like Jesus. But because Peter's a Christian, because he belongs to the Lord, there's nothing that the devil can do without getting God's permission first. Nothing gets to God without having to go through his nothing gets to you without having to go through God's in basket first. So Satan has no legal access or right to sift us or test us or do anything unless he has the Lord's permission. But any area of our life that's not been dealt with, whether it's lust, pride, or money, or whatever, is an area that Satan has legal access to. So the devil's over here looking at this fight going on. He says, look at all that pride. You know? He says, let me at Peter. Let me get a hold of that. And the Lord says, Satan's demanded permission to sift you, and I've granted him permission. I've prayed for you that when the test and the trial and the storm is all over, I pray that you get through it and that you will be able to go on and fulfill and carry out what I've called you to about building my church. And Peter says, oh, no, you got it wrong. I mean, it's not a good idea to try to play games with God. But this is how strong Peter's pride is. He starts arguing with God. I know some people I try to counsel with, and I'm trying to talk to them or whatever, and it's like they beg to differ and say this, that, and the other, and sometimes I see that it's so deep in them. I got to think, if it was Jesus Christ having dinner with them at Denny's, and Jesus was trying to explain something more, they would be arguing with the Lord. And this is basically what Peter is doing. He says, oh, no, you got it wrong. With you I am ready to go both to prison and to death. And the Lord says, you ain't getting it. So I'm going to have to let it go on. And we know eventually he goes on further. Now keep in mind, Jesus was going to have to depend on Peter to build the church, but he wasn't near ready for it, so he sends a servant girl with another test. Peter thinks he's okay, he keeps trying to go forward, and he gets to this test and this trial, and this servant girl begins to say, you are one of his disciples. The next thing you know, he's denying it, and then he gets the same situation happens twice, and then 3 times. And then we know the rooster crows 3 times. Peter realizes he's been a mess, and he cries and weeps and has egg on his face. But we know that Peter turned it around. He failed the test, okay? But he was able to regroup, repent, and go back and retake the test. And we know that eventually he went on to do the things he needed to be doing. So the thing we need to understand is that God is doing the same thing with us. He has a plan and a purpose for our lives. Whether you're a pastor or a housewife or whatever, God has a place He wants to take us, but we're not ready for it. We have areas of pride. We have different things that, if left undealt with, will hinder us from doing what we need to be doing. And so God forever sovereignly orchestrates events that are specifically designed for you to get at your character defects, to take you through the fire, to develop proven character in your life so you can go on and be about your business. This is why it's so important that we never take ourselves out of a trial. James 1-2 says, consider it all joy, my brethren, when, not if you encounter trouble, but when you are in storms or trials or tests, count it all joy, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. Let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect, complete, lacking in nothing. So, we too are like Jesus. We get to this place in our life, and we turn around and run from it, or we try to go around, we sit there, and we don't do anything to our life. But how many know we can't go on with God? You can't take calculus if you haven't passed algebra yet. So when God orders a test, His tests are pass or fail. If you fail them, you just have to retake them. And so many of us in our lives, we've had these character defects. We've jumped through a few storms and trials. We've maybe got 7 or 8 years clean. And then we come to this place in our life where God is trying to take us deeper, but rather than going deeper, we don't want to deal with our thing, and we go different. And the progress is stopped. There's not much God can do. So eventually, we're going to have to come right back around the mountain and come right back to this same spot again. If you're going to go on with God. Now, Hebrews 12, 1 through 11 talks about the discipline of the Lord. Genesis 22, 1 through 18 talk about Abraham and what he had to go through. So those are good readings. So how are you doing with your tests and trials? 1 Corinthians 10:13 says that no temptation, trial or test or storm has overtaken you, but such as is common to man. God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted or tested beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will provide a way of escape also, so that you will be able to endure it. I love what this is saying right there. This is a promise. That you may find yourself in a trial or test, and you may think, I can't deal with this. I've got to run from this. This is too much for me. What this scripture right here promises us that no storm, test, or trial that God puts you in is going to be too tough of a test, that there's not going to be a way for God to see you through that test. Now listen to this one. The degree of God's testing are directly proportional to the degree of confidence that God has in you to pass that test. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So God may bring you up to the border where you're looking at a Grand Canyon or a fire, and you're saying, this is the big one, it's over with, I can't do from this, I might as well take myself out, I might as well run and go drink. And we get in these situations, don't we? And we want to run. But how many of you know that you're just having to go around the mountain over and over again? I don't know about you, but I'm tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired all the time. So what it says, when you get into these situations, know that God will never put a test or trial in your life unless you're going to be able to get through that thing.
Amen.
That test is proportional to the confidence that He has in you. So no matter what kind of test you find yourself in, never say it's too big, it's too difficult. God may push you right up to the brink, but He's given you a promise that no matter whatever you're going through, God is going to be able to see you through that trial and test. All right, now there's 3 things when you're in a test. 3 questions you need to ask yourself. And I think this will relate to everybody. In the past, when I've got to this point, and I've turned around and ran, what have been the consequences? Where's it got me? We talk about replaying the tapes. Been there, done that. One of the reasons I don't drink and smoke crack and do all that crazy stuff is I did enough of it to finally learn that I've always got to come back. I belong to God. There's nowhere to hide. So now I replay the tapes and I think about where's it got me in the past. So I can honestly say I've not been tempted to drink or drug in the whole 19 years that I've been clean. Part of it is because I know there's nowhere to go. So where's it got me in the past? And if I'm back around the mountain taking the same test If I fail today, where's it going to take me in the future? So if I make a bad decision now, it's going to take me back to the same old stuff. If I push on through, who knows? You never know what God might do. And the third one is think about what would happen in the past if you had done this 13 years ago and dealt with this. Where would you be today? You'll never know about that one. So tests and trials will come. Come easy or come hard, but they will come. Amen?
Amen.
All right, let's go ahead and break up into our groups now. And next week will be our Overcomers Testimony Night. And then after that, we're going to be getting into crucifixion. So go ahead and read the next chapter in your book on crucifixion.